Okay.
Every day I see miserable people doing things they hate just to fit in. I know it's easier to get along peacefully, but have you ever thought about you? Don't know why I keep on doing what I'm told to do when the rules are made up by someone we never knew. Baby, wipe your tears and hear me out. We don't need someone to feel alright. Let's do the streets on a Monday. Let's call your exes and tell them they can join us too. Why always worry about money when you can get rich by trying to see the outside?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dear Attorney Lenore Show. This week, we are tackling a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Kids. That's why I do what I do. I feel that the children in the divorce process can suffer the most and have the least voice and the least attention, and they are the building blocks of our future. So we have to tread carefully in this area to make sure that our children are not part of the walking wounded going forward. I am so thrilled to be joined with my co-host, talented author, speaker, fantastic coach, Pamela Elaine Nichols.
Hello.
And this is just why I do what I do. As I said, this is my sweet spot.
Yeah, it is, Lenore, and I'm so grateful to share this space with you because you do have a heart for the children who are typically caught right smack dab in the middle of the drama between divorcing parents. And I know all about it because I've been there, done that. So today's show is really an interesting topic. The 5 big custody mistakes parents must not make.
Yes.
Although we make them all the time. And what we're going to do, Attorney Lenore, for those of you who are joining us live, I'm going to ask some questions of Attorney Lenore from people who planted questions in advance of the show. If you are watching and you have a question about custody, all you have to do is put it in the chat and start it with Dear Attorney Lenore, then ask your questions. If I see your question in the chat, I will deviate from those questions that came in earlier and ask your question. You also are welcome to ask as many questions as you want on the topic to get as much clarity as you want during the time we are together. Attorney Lenore, are you ready for the first question?
Yes, I am.
Okie dokie. All right. First question is, children aren't doing as well as we thought. Dear Attorney Lenore, my ex and I have 2 young children that we both love. We made a custody arrangement that works pretty well for my ex-wife and me, but we have noticed over the last several months that Both children are having some difficulties. Our son and daughter struggle to establish a routine as they constantly are unpacking and packing their belongings and adapting to different household rules and expectations. Our daughter, who is in elementary school, finds it particularly challenging to keep track of her school assignments and materials, leading to a drop in her academic performance. Everything was just fine, but now it isn't. What custody mistake did we make?
The custody mistake that you both made is you weren't considering how this was going to work for the kids. I mean, you're both fat and happy in your own houses. You imploded their universe. I'm sorry. That really is what happened. Not that you don't love your kids, but they're the ones schlepping back and forth, not the two of you. And I always say, I am amazed at how these kids do it, because we as adults, with all our coping skills, on our best day, could not do the schedule we ask these kids to do and function. But they do because they love their parents. They want to spend time with both of their parents, and they make it work. So, mom and dad, it might have sounded ideal, and the two of you clearly love your kids. And of course, you want to spend as much time as possible with them, but your daughter's struggling. And you might have to roll back the schedule a little bit to accommodate her until she can handle it. Going forward, schedules are going to change depending on the age of the child, their activity level, and things like that. But you have to really take into account what your child's capabilities are and make the decisions on your parenting arrangement based on what they can handle, not what you want, not what's convenient for your schedule, because the kids, they're doing all the work.
Yeah, that really is true. I learned that hard lesson so much after the fact, after the custody schedule had been put in place. Did we learn that? And in fact, our children were the ones that kind of brought it to my attention, like, we're going back and forth and you're not. And they were right. So
good for them.
Yeah, I know. Right. But that was much later after they had been scarred. No, that was a lot later they got it. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, you just don't know until you try it. But God bless your kids for, having a voice and being comfortable enough to talk to the two of you. Not feeling that their wants and needs were going to be ignored. So that's a positive that your children felt they could come to you and say, this isn't working for me, and knew that they would be heard.
I appreciate that perspective, Attorney Lenore. Let's go to the next question. All right. Our daughter belongs in a stable home. Our daughter belongs in a stable home. Dear Attorney Lenore, my ex-husband is a recovering drug addict. He says he wants more time with our teenage daughter than he is allowed. I have told him many times, right in front of our daughter, how opposed I am to him spending more time with her. I felt she needed to know that her father isn't fully recovered and could lapse at any time. I don't want her caught off guard. Her school called and said she is acting out and that I may need to get her some help. What custody mistake did I make? Sincerely, the stable parent.
Well, number one is you disparaged her other parent, who is half of her DNA. Addictions are a disease. And while there might be reasons that you want to keep her safe and you're not sure if dad's ready, those conversations need to take place outside of your child's purview, even as a teenager, because she's going to doubt herself. She's going to doubt what she remembers about your interactions. If it was Was dad really present, or were they just putting on a show? Am I going to become a drug addict? Should I watch out for this? Does dad really love me, or does he love his addiction more? So many things
Mm,
about that were negative for this child's self-esteem. I'm not saying that the mom should totally discount the fact that dad has an addiction. Of course, but she can do other things to safeguard the child, such as asking for a hair follicle test, or if it's alcohol, asking that he use SoberLink, have his time
mm,
supervised. All of those things she can do to safeguard the child, but she needs to make sure that that experience between the child and her father is always a positive one. The child
mm.
needs of both parents to feel the love and support from both of them. And fighting an addiction is tough. And if he is being successful, her daughter should be proud of that. She should be proud of that.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
and besides that, mom, you picked him. You picked him as a co-parent. And I don't know if he had that addiction issue or not, but if you still had a child with him and you knew he had an addiction issue, what does that say about who you are as a parent? I mean, you're stuck with one another for the rest of your lives. She needs to work through who each of her parents are, but you don't need to make her think that her father is not a good person or that he doesn't love her because he has an addiction. Not in front of her. You can do things outside of her purview to make sure she's safe, and then she can have a say in what she wants to do.
Lenore, you mentioned follicle. What was that? Say that again.
I'm so sorry. So what happens a lot of times in court cases where there's addiction, what is often requested is a hair follicle drug and or alcohol test. And these tests are performed for a different panel of drugs. And generally, when they test the hair follicle, they can look back about 90 days to see whether or not somebody has been using a drug that they shouldn't be, or abusing alcohol. So that is often one way to ensure that somebody is maintaining their sobriety, because a urine test is, one day somebody could be sober and next day not. SoberLink is something that's used for alcohol to ensure that the person is not drinking during certain periods of time. It's a test where the person that has the addiction has to blow into it for the other parent at certain times.
Oh.
So those are two things that can happen to ensure that the person is sober, and or especially sober when they're with the child.
I think the point that we often don't understand as divorcing parents is the one you brought up in the very beginning of your answer, which is how damaging it is to the child to listen to the other parent say negative things about the other parent, about their mother or father. I mean, it almost seems like, well, we need to tell our children how awful the other parent is because we want to protect them, right? We want to protect them from the awfulness of the other parent, but it's actually the reverse that's happening.
It is. Kids are pretty savvy. They can see who their parents are. Sometimes what happens is if one parent is too negative against the other parent, they feel the need to become that parent's protector. They stand up for the parent because they feel that parent is not capable of standing up for themselves. And it really puts the child in the middle. And, I often say to parents, you're not doing your kids any favors by doing that, because that parent is half of their DNA. And if you say bad things about that parent, all you succeed in doing is making that child feel bad about themselves. And if the child sees that side of them that's, I don't know, like the other parent, like even something as simple as we both like peanut butter. Well, I can't tell the other parent I like peanut butter like my one parent, because that'll make me like that parent, and that, the disparaging
Mhm.
parent won't like me because I'm like that other parent. It's a
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
confusing message to send,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
no matter
Yeah.
what age the child is, it's
Mhm.
each parent should encourage the child to love each parent as they
Yeah.
are and see them as they are, but not disparage them.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're just now joining us, welcome to the Dear Attorney Lenore show. We are tackling the difficult topic of 5 big mistakes custody parents should not make. And if you have a question about custody, all you have to do is put it in the chat. Start it with Dear Attorney Lenore, and then ask your custody question. I will read it to Attorney Lenore, and she will answer it. You're welcome to ask as many questions as you need answers to. Attorney Lenore, would you like to go to the next question that came in advance?
Most definitely.
Okay, here we go. We know how to handle custody. Okay. Dear Attorney Lenore, my ex-wife and I are highly educated professionals. We have read many books on custody for divorcing parents. We have an alternative view about children and custody, which is that the children should make the decision of where they want to live. We gave our children the decision-making power. The problem is they don't want to live with me. They want to live with their mother. I am deeply hurt by this. What custody mistake did we make? Sincerely, feeling left out.
Well, depending on the age of the children, the first mistake was putting that burden on your child. I mean, you're asking them kind of to choose between the two of you. If they're older children and the back and forth is something that impacts them, and it always impacts them, but they're more mature and can offer their perspective. I think that's a good idea. But the bigger thing is, Dad, you're missing the whole point. You can't see the forest for the trees. Your kids don't want to be with you. Why?
Oh,
Hey,
yikes, that hurts.
it does hurt.
Yeah.
But you gave them the power, and now you don't like the decision. Well, they're telling you there's a problem. Is it with you, or is it that they don't want to go back and forth, or what is it? So I would say this is a situation that calls for family counseling, where a counselor can talk to each family member and then bring family members together to find out what's going on and how they can make things better going forward. So, I think sometimes kids they want to know that their needs are met. They're going to get to school. They're going to be fed. They're going to get to see their friends. They're going to get to go to their activities. And if you can ensure them that, they're pretty easy going back and forth. But I think there's a lot more that's not in this question. And I think that, whoops, sorry. And I think that there needs to be a family counseling session to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and I want to offer you a spin on that, right? Because in my particular case, we have 4 children together, and 2 of whom, who will remain nameless, chose not to live with me any longer. And when we had an honest conversation about it a little bit later on in their lives, they admitted that my rules were strict and the rules at the other parent's house were loose, and they wanted to do their own thing. which they knew they would be held accountable to at my house. Now, I'm not trying to make myself out to be the better parent. I'm just saying what they said, that this was the reason why they chose to go live with the other parent than to stay with me. And I was deeply hurt by their leaving, but only to come to understand later on that they wanted something that they couldn't get at my living with me, that I would never have extended to them anyway. What do you say to that?
Well, that comes down to communication between parents. I mean,
Mm,
parents
mm,
have to communicate, because by the time kids get to be teenagers, if they're not communicating, the kids are running rings around them. I mean, it's hard enough when two parents are in one household,
mhm.
let alone two
Yeah.
different households. And, that kids can get into some kind of heavy duty stuff, and
Yeah.
they're not going to feel they can go to either parent, because the parent
Mm,
that kind of was lax doesn't seem to really care. And the parent that had the rules is probably going to come down hard on them. And
mm,
I think if you would have had a family counseling session, what would have happened is, first of all, open communication, which is a great role model for your kids as to how relationships should work, and then negotiating and compromise. I mean, those are they're essential skills in the world.
yeah.
And so, if you would have had that opportunity, you would have given them those skills, modeled those skills for them, given them a sense of empowerment, and it would have been a win-win all the way around. Instead, they avoided conflict. They went the easy route. They really didn't tell you what they wanted and why. And you were left feeling hurt and not sure. And dad was feeling like, well, they want to be with me, yay, but not understanding why.
Yeah.
So
And
there
I
was a
think that there's
teachable
a,
moment there,
yeah,
unfortunately, that
okay.
wasn't taken advantage of.
Yeah, and then if we go to the dark side of this, right? It was probably to the other parent's advantage, because that parent no longer had to pay child support for those two kids. I mean, let's just call an ugly thing. And
Right,
so why
right.
would that parent try to say, go, let's talk about it, ex-wife, mother of the children? No, like, I don't want to talk about it, because now we've got not 4 kids for child support, just 2. And that made a big fat difference. I
And
mean,
and
it is a dark side to this.
and that happens a lot. Money can be the motivator often. And that the kids
Yeah.
don't realize that, but that's kind of
Mhm.
that's not the way people should parent. They need to
I totally agree.
understand that it is
Mhm.
essential for kids to have a positive relationship with both parents. And if there's conflict, or
Yep.
disagreements, it has to be worked out. Now, if you were living in the same household, that's what you would have done. But
Mhm.
you weren't. So, um, you know, it was a shortcoming on dad's side as well, because he was only looking at the dollar signs, and that was something that he could have offered the children for their emotional development that would have been worth, that weight in gold.
Yeah. Well, we have 2 more questions that were submitted in advance, and I'm going to read the 4th question. And again, if you're joining us live, you're welcome to ask your question about custody by starting with Dear Attorney Lenore, and I will read that question without, of course, naming you, and Attorney Lenore will answer it. All right, let's go to our 4th question. I hired a forensic psychologist. Dear Attorney Lenore, my wife is not fit to have custody of our 3 children. She has had multiple emotional breakdowns during our marriage, sometimes in front of the kids. Plus, she struggles to keep a job. During our custody battle, I called a forensic psychologist to talk to our children to prove that their mother isn't fit. The children seemed pretty disturbed after their appointments. I don't know why. What custody mistake did I make? Sincerely, protector of the children. Okay, Attorney Lenore, rip them
Well,
apart.
There's many mistakes I would say were made here.
Mm,
One, so mom is struggling with mental health issues. I don't know when she was diagnosed. You know, if dad knew that she had these issues and they still kept having kids, and that might have been too much for her, but she's still their mother. Okay. And the children need to have a positive relationship with mom, and hiring a forensic psychologist to do a custody evaluation is really a big waste of time and money, because
mhm,
it really is. Generally, if mom has a history of mental health issues, then that would be something that would be brought to the court's attention. And if mom's psychological profile needed to be confirmed, the court could have just ordered a psychological evaluation of mom. Putting the
Mhm.
kids in this position, they're going to,
Mhm.
someone is going to be there. They know that they're looking for things against mom. They're feeling like they're put in a position where they're betraying their mother, even if it's obvious that she's having issues. And also, that's kind of picking at scabs for the kids. They've already been through
Mhm.
enough living with a
Mm,
parent with mental health issues. You don't want somebody else, picking at that. I mean, the kids themselves probably would benefit from individual counseling to process everything, but what is the forensic psychologist going to do? They're going to say,
mhm.
this is mom's diagnosis, which you could have gotten in another way without involving the kids. The kids need counseling. You could have ordered that anyway. The court could have ordered that anyway. You and mom need counseling, because despite the fact that mom has a
Mhm.
mental health issue, you two don't know how to interact appropriately with one another. You have to do your own individual counseling to figure out a better way to interact with mom and when she's having her issues. And then the two of you together have to develop a better set of relationship tools to work as co-parents, as opposed to a married couple. And
Yeah.
it's a big shift. And those psychological evaluations, they cost $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. And
Mm,
what does it fix? Nothing. The courts are going to tell the
mhm.
two of you, go get counseling.
Mhm. Mhm.
And because that's the fix. The court, we're all lawyers. We can't fix what's wrong in the families that come before us. That's
That's
something
a
that
good point.
only the people themselves can do with the assistance of
Mhm.
a therapist. And
Mm, mhm.
most lawyers aren't psychologists or social workers. They're not
Yeah.
there to fix things. They're there to make a schedule, period, end of discussion.
Mhm.
And then it's for
Mhm.
the parents themselves to make it work. It's kind of like we give you a car, but now you got to go find gas to make it go.
Wow. Mhm. That's a great distinction, because I think sometimes we make the mistake in thinking that, yes, the lawyer, the judge is going to fix us. And that's really not the case. And that leads us to our fifth question. I think it's a great segue here, because this is the one that cracks me up the most. Dear, this one is: the judge knows best. Dear Attorney Lenore, my ex and I just could not agree on a custody arrangement for our 4 children. It was just too complicated, and we were clashing over the smallest details. I said to my ex, forget it. You don't know what's best. The judge knows what's best, and the judge will make the right decision for the kids. After the judgment, We both hated the arrangements that were made. For me, the arrangements the judge handed down are impractical for my work schedule and my responsibilities, not to mention how unfair the arrangements are for me. What custody mistake did we make? Sincerely, it's not fair.
Okay. First of all, when someone
Okay.
says to me in custody, it's not fair, steam comes out of my ears. Who says it has to be fair for you? It's not fair for the kids. You two imploded their universe because you didn't do your work together to either keep your relationship together or to become better co-parents. And now the kids are stuck in the middle. So no, there's nothing fair about it, mostly for the kids. So, oh, well. The other thing is, again, as I said, we're lawyers. We are not the great and powerful Oz is. We're just a man and woman behind the curtain. You two have the power. You two know your kids better than anybody. You two are the most invested in your children's health and happiness and future. And you two are the ones that are going to have to live this along with your kids. So you're the two people that are best to decide what kind of a parenting schedule you have. I mean, you just hand away the keys to the kingdom to this stranger in a black robe to tell you what your kids should do. Would you do that in any other situation? Would you just hand your kids off to a stranger and say, yeah, take them wherever you want. I trust you. We're just human beings. Judges do the best that they can. They are very dedicated to coming up with decisions that are best for the children, but they are also looking at things through their own lenses, and they get to spend a few hours with you, a few minutes with your kids. That's not enough time to really know what's going to be best for your children. That's something that the two of you need to step up to the plate and take responsibility for. Do your work. Do your work. Your kids are the ones going back and forth. At the least you could do for them is figure out what makes you and the other parent tick and how you can make it better, because your relationship is the role model for every relationship these kids are going to have. Friends, family, coworkers, teachers, romantic interests, and their relationship with you. So what kind of a template are you going to give to your kids to go out in the world and make a happy relationship? Do you want them to repeat the same mistakes that have caused you such heartaches? Or do you want to give them a better template to show them how they can walk in a better way in the world? And that's up to the two of you. And this is generational. It's generational. And I often say to people, you only have to turn the stream just a little bit to change the course of the river. But it is an earth-moving event, and it does take a lot of work. But the benefits long-term for generations to come are going to be more than you can even imagine.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think we also think that the judge is going to side with me. The judge is going to make an arrangement that's best for me, as if the judge picks and, well, maybe sometimes they do pick and choose. I don't know. But sometimes that's a misunderstanding about what the judge's role is.
I think so. And I think for people, they've stepped into an adversarial system where somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And so they're, stacking up as many volleys as they can so that they can cherry pick the best parts of their case and cherry bomb the worst parts of the other person's case. And it really just pours salt in the wounds. It causes more distrust. And when you're co-parenting, you really need to trust one another. And I often say, going to court is not a trust building exercise. So the goal is for you to win and the other person to lose. That's not the best way to do it. Counseling and mediation, where You can be in your calmer space where your executive functioning is on, where you can really hear what the other person is saying and not being on the offensive. That's the way to go. And most courts require you to go to a 2-hour mediation session, or at least be informed about what that is. But being forced
Yeah.
to go to mediation isn't as helpful as choosing mediation. And that is
Mhm.
really, mediation is the best tool for coming up with a parenting plan. It really is.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Attorney Lenore, let the listeners who are viewing now and in the future know how they might be able to get access to your wisdom on custody and all things related to divorce.
So if anyone would like to schedule a 60-minute consultation with me, if they've attended this seminar either now or are watching it in the future, they can contact me and they'll get a discount of to $100. I normally charge $350 for a 60-minute consultation, but for the listeners of this video, I'm reducing it to $100. And you can contact me through Divorce Done Differently PA at Gmail. And I'd be happy to try and help you out because, as I said, this is my passion. Children are why I do this work.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, thanks to everyone who took the time to listen in on today. And Attorney Lenore will be back again next week.
Okay, wonderful. Can't wait.